Hi there, welcome back to the Idaho 4 Bryan Kohberger case. We're reflecting back on the recent shocking events which have happened and which some families have been very disappointed by, such as the Goncalves family, and that is the Idaho 4 student house accommodation, Moscow, Idaho, that has been demolished in recent time. I think it might have been last Thursday. We're going to be looking at the latest news article about it, to look at some photos and maybe some footage of it too, if possible, and the details behind it, if there's any reasoning, explanations, and interesting new information to look at, to try and comprehend what's happened and to understand whether was it really worth doing, or is there another reason behind it. Because when it comes to the community, there are some people out there that are suggesting, not stating, not saying with 100% certainty, just suggesting, is a university covering for Kohberger? I mean, why would that be the case? Well, maybe we can better understand it later on in this video. We can also look back at the comments from the last one that I did to see some of those points made, because it is a bit strange, but it's also kind of interesting as well. I mean, we've had the wave of people that have stated, claiming Kohberger is innocent, he's being set up by someone, something out there. Who knows, you never know. But with the recent actions that have gone on, and it mainly responsible falling at the hands of the university themselves that own the area, and like off living quarters and campus area where the students can live whilst they attend that university, to have it demolished, whilst yes, it's understandable because of the dark memories it has. You don't want to be reminded of that all the time, and also you don't want it to be treated as a tourist hotspot too, so take it down. But there's a right place and a right time, and I don't think that was quite yet, considering the case is ongoing and the actual trial or court case with Kohberger hasn't gone underway yet, truly. That there's suggestions that they want to push it back to summertime of 2024, so it doesn't coincide with the terms of the the university students and people attending schools in the area, with the courthouse being adjacent across the road to the university. It would get a bit messy and stuff. I get that. So if that was going to be delayed, it's a shame that the demolition wasn't delayed too. I think previously, before November time of when it was announced, before November time, I think there was some delays and talk there, but unfortunately they weren't able to hold out long enough. So the university, firm and strong in their ways of what they want. Could it cost the case? Could it lead to Kohberger being found innocent, or not enough evidence being found to suggest he is responsible? You never know. I do feel that it may harm the case in some way or another, critically or just a bit. It'll do something. It doesn't do any good removing evidence, evidentiary, environmental, structures of what happened. Okay, map layout, 3D model, which may or may not be used in the court trials, the court case. So you take more things away, it's going to make it harder to recall stuff and to try and, visualize it in mind. With other cases, right? Other cases out there like Dylan Rounds, evidence collected along the way, but maybe initially not starting off with much at all, but with time building the case as well as building the evidence, so it forms a certain strength behind it and confidence. With this one, Idaho 4, it's gone more backwards. So they've got evidence at a point in time, and then now they've actually lost evidence before going to the court trials and stuff. So it just seems like backwards mentality, and that just seems very silly. You want justice, some form of justice. What justice is there in getting rid of evidence and outright doing it within the public eye? It just seems a bit reckless. And with that recklessness can come consequences. So we'll see what will happen next. But I think what we'll do first is look at the latest news article, read through it, analyse. If there's any footage, maybe try and play it if possible. And then we can give the conclusion and the comments from other people in recent time. The title of this article reads, Idaho College Murders House Demolished Despite Some Families' Objections. So only some families. So the other families, victims to the persons that have passed away, murdered, weren't as, bothered about it. Well, that's interesting. Interesting, there's a bit of a divide there. Subtitle, 2 families didn't want the house torn down before the trial. Okay, 2 families that have gone Kohbergers, and I wonder who the other one is. It might mention it down below. December 28th, 2023, 2:29 p.m. ET. So I'm assuming that's when this article was posted. So it's kind of recent time, right? As I said, I've been busy covering other cases. We're reflecting back on this right now because there are some key points to make, and I've got my own, analysis to do on this. There are some photos down below, so we can take a look at that. It says, house in Idaho college murders demolished. Those in favour of demolishing the house say it's an important step in moving forwards, while some of the victims' families say the house could have been provided evidence in the upcoming trial. That's true. Yes, you can take away something so it doesn't remind you of bad memories anymore. But whilst that can be a positive, being able to move forwards, how can you ultimately move forwards if it could lead to justice not being met within the case itself because you've taken away key evidence? It just doesn't seem well thought through. Right. So it says the off-campus house where 4 University of Idaho students were killed was demolished on Thursday despite mixed feelings from victims' families. The demolition began before the sun came up. The 3-story house in Moscow, Idaho, was torn down in under 2 hours. Pretty quick. Now, my question is, just on the spot, if it's been torn down, in the future, if there is updated Google Earth, satellite imagery, Street View imagery, will it be blurred out with time? Or when the case is over and done with, will it still remain blurred out or not? I wonder. Let me know your thoughts down below. It says here, the excavator started by removing the siding and then the first level of the house. The giant claw then busted through the second level, following by the third level and the roof. Heavy equipment is used to demolish the house where 4 University of Idaho students were killed. Yeah. So we've got one image there. You can see the balcony in the back. All the contents being stripped out, really not much left behind. I mean, I guess with furniture, that furniture was taken away, and anything of potential evidence previously would have been taken as well and analysed. But still, you try mapping it out, you try visualising how the events played out, right? Whether new evidence is found down the line or in the future during the court trials or later, if people were to go back down to this area now and work out in their mind the entrance, the exit point. How can you when the building's just not there? It's just hard to visualise. You can see the excavator there on the left. Was it Hitachi, is it? Heavy equipment is used to demolish the house. Yep. One of the construction guys there on the left. Cornered off in the background with some taping in the wooded area. Does look a bit spooky back there. And previously it looks like the windows boarded up. I guess that's probably just to prevent people from actually getting into the area. It says Moscow Police Chief James Bryan, officials from the university were among those at the scene. About 8 dump trucks removed debris and the cleanup process is now underway. A worker rakes debris during a pause in the use of heavy equipment to demolish the house where, right, there you go. Almost nothing left there. Is that a door? Gruesome crime unfolded in early hours. Right, so that's just basically going through it all over again. Stabbed to death inside a girl's home. 2 other roommates survived. Where those roommates are at now, I wonder what they think of this. The suspect, Bryan Kohberger, who was a criminology PhD student at a nearby Washington State University, the same university that's responsible for this house being destroyed, says at the time of the murders was arrested weeks later. He pleaded not guilty and is waiting a trial date, though he did keep quiet for quite some time. University officials said they decided to tear down the house during winter break to try to decrease further impact on the students who live in that area. To be honest, I think that's a bit silly. Okay, you're taking it away, so it's no longer a lasting negative reminder and memory on the people that live there. But whilst that's done to help make them feel more comfortable, before maybe feeling unsettled by what went down and what they see every day that they wake up, now when they go past the area, the reminder isn't as strong. But the fear and discomfort could actually intensify now, knowing that there is less evidence now than there was before, which could be in favour of Kohberger. And if Kohberger is found innocent, truly or somehow, and then released, those students within the area could feel even more terrified at the fact that there was somebody walking as a free man who could do the same thing all over again in the eyes of them who believe he is guilty, right? I mean, it will cause more unsettling feelings, right? Anyway, it says Kaylee Goncalves' family was firmly against knocking down the house, saying doing so would destroy one of the most critical pieces of evidence in the case before a trial date is even set. You know, if the house is classified as the most important bit of evidence, then that should be preserved the most. Workers walk past the demolition of a home on Thursday. Yeah. Right. What does that say? The owner of the rental home near the university campus donated it to the university earlier this year. So the responsibility was handed over to the university, and that's why they made that final decision. So it makes you think, the original owner of the rental home, if they never passed it on to the university, would that rental home owner have been more likely to preserve the building, I wonder? And was there any, what are the opinions of the students within the area, regardless of what the university may think? What did the students themselves think of this community, this area? Did they want the building remaining or knocked down? I wonder. It says here, it's obvious from the two recent visits to the house by both the prosecution and the defence that there is still evidentiary value in having the King Road house still standing. There may be additional discovery by either party that prompts one side or the other to go back to the scene of the crime. The Goncalves family said in a statement this month, jurors are notoriously unpredictable and they tend to make decisions on a variety of facts and circumstances. It would be foolish of us to try and foresee what they will want or need to make a just verdict in this case. Right. So in a way you could interpret it how it's worded here that, okay, you take away the building, that can harm the case. What? For or against Kohberger? How it's mentioned here, it could say that the defence team of Kohberger are in need of that building as a form of evidence to defend oneself. But then the opposition that are trying to prove that Kohberger is guilty would need that evidentiary evidence and the building itself to map things out, to tell the story and to point stuff out and maybe find things in the future, right? So you could say that both sides need and rely on that building as evidence. Do people agree? We could do a poll here in the live chat, and depending how many people are watching, I could do another poll on my channel page and people can check that out there. In general, the poll could be, with the building being destroyed now, who's in more desperate need, or who was in more desperate need of relying on the building as a form of defending themselves or getting justice, right? Is it Kohberger's team, defence team, or the family? Who relies on it more as a form of evidence? Who needs it more, right? Or needed it, because it's no longer that. It says, it's like screaming into a void, the family said. Nobody is listening. Bare spots are seen on November 29, 2022 in a snowy parking lot in front of the home. Right, so this is an original older photo, but post-murder, right? You see the building in normal shape and condition. Obviously, you try looking at Google Earth, it's blurred out, kind of understandable. It says the Goncalves and Knodel families, Knodel, issued a strong new statement on the eve of the demolition, pushing for a trial date to be set and urging the university to not tear down the house until the trial is completed. They cited 8 reasons. They say the house could hold evidentiary value for the trial, including all of the entry and exit points in the home, very true, where any potential biological evidence was found inside or outside the house, and if the house itself could have been a target for the crime initially. Fair points. Take in mind that one glove belonging to an unknown male was found near to a window the inside or the outside? Well, that could hint at the entry-exit point, but how can you look at that now? How can you map it out now when it's just not there, the building? So that's the problem. It says, but Ethan Chapin's parents were supportive of the demolition. Ethan was a triplet and his brother and sister are both current University of Idaho students. Could that be considered a bit of a weak mentality to have? It's good it's taken down. It's good that there's less evidence, right? Even if there was enough evidence already, to have it in your mind and mentality that, yes, let's tear it down. Let's remove evidence. Who thinks that way? You know what I'm saying? It says the Chapins said the demolition is for the good of the university, its students, including our own kids, and the community of Moscow. So basically, the Chapins are speaking on behalf of everybody else when not everybody else thinks the same way. So is that going to cause some kind of tension and resistance between family members? Well, differing sets of families and how they look at each other now on. So some family members, well, some members of the families out there supporting it under the victims and others not. University President Scott Green said, whilst we appreciate the emotional connection some family members of the victims may have to this house, it is time for its removal and to allow the collective healing of our community to continue. That just seems a bit ignorant. The university added, after the trial was delayed earlier this fall, both prosecution and defence asked for access to the house and have both gone into the house in the last 2 months. Neither have asked for the house to be retained. Right. University spokesperson Jodie Walker told ABC News at the scene on Thursday that it was powerful to see the house come down and to know that this was sort of the close of a chapter, the start of the next one. But the case hasn't even ended, hasn't even really begun yet, so how can you say that? She stressed that university officials had discussed the demolition with the prosecution and defence and both sides were done with the house and have what they need to bring this case to justice. I mean, that's the only point you could say, well, maybe if the officials and the ones there have it under control, they know and what they now have, that's more than enough. But what about the general public or certain victims or even those 2 housemates that survived who may be used as a witness or used in the trials onwards who may need to rely on certain visual evidence and evidentiary stuff which they don't have anymore, right? They may have needed it. So that appears to be at the article. Let me add on with my thoughts. So as I've said previously, and I'll just highlight it once again, I think the house should have remained until the case came to a close. Once the case came to a close and some form of justice was served, then you move on, you move forwards and do whatever, and then the house could come down to and close a chapter. I'd agree with that. I do sense and feel that times in the past with completely different cases and in different locations in countries that evidence has been destroyed, taken away out of the hands of the victims, the families caught up in it, the witnesses, and it's led to cases falling through. And the people being accused of being responsible being let free, walking free man or woman, and then it's led to them reoffending down the line or just offending at a point, and then it's led to more families and more people getting hurt and harmed. Why do you want to allow that opportunity for that person to do it again or to do something different of a different crime? It just feels a bit reckless. It's just maybe being a bit too precautious. But the family members, like the Knodel and the Goncalves, that they are a bit more sensitive at the fact that they may sense a bit of fear or worry that Kohberger could get released, get let off, not enough evidence against him. And those families just want as much evidence to be preserved, which is a normal mentality to have. And when you let family members or friends of friends who aren't in charge of the legal system, the court, the trial and stuff like that, you're going to feel powerless. You're not going to know everything. You're not going to have the same confidence as maybe the jurors, the prosecutors, the defence team may have, who have been down there, who've collected what they've needed to collect and are now confident now. But it still falls back onto some of the key witnesses who may have needed to rely on the likes of the building remaining as it is. And just what if What if down the line there was new evidence found, and how could you match that then back with the building when it's no longer there, right? What about that unknown DNA of 3 other males there who were never identified? Isn't that important, right? The fact that they've not come forth, not appeared yet, that just seems odd, strange. Yeah, it's a major case, this. It would have been in the news, it would have been mentioned in the area quite often at some point or another, and it'll probably come up again when the trials go underway. But the people that were there, the males, where are they now? What are they doing? Do they care? Do they not? Are they on the run? Are they involved? Are they victims? Why are they not talking? Have they been silenced? What's going on? Strange, right? Still some strange mysteries. Okay, people have been murdered, and there's been certain items found along the way, like the knife sheath and evidence, DNA stuff belonging to Kohberger too. And some counterclaims made saying that maybe it's been taken from him and somebody else used it and set him up, etc., right? But there are still sub-mysteries which haven't been solved and may remain unsolved because you no longer have that building. I mean, ultimately, the best way to negotiate would have been almost encase the building, right? I don't know what you would use. Would it be plasterboard? Would it be some kind of wood? You know, like when you're constructing a house, if you could like put a big square or a big dome case over it, like a big box, like that, to cover it up, to preserve it, so no one can get in, no one can actually make it out as to what it really is, and maybe even paint over it random colours, right? Just make it look less memorable as to what it belonged to, and that in the future, if it was ever needed, you could just like take the casing off or make an opening and walk through and then into the building and then into there and go from there, right? I mean, if you got the house still standing and not covered up or anything, you will see it and it will always remind you. But if there was things done to alter it, right? Not internally, not directly on the building itself, but like encasing it, disguising it so it doesn't bring back bad memories for the locals, but at least preserves key evidence for the future. I think that would have been a reasonable negotiation. That's what I'd say at least, right? But I just want to move on to, is there any suspicion, and this can tie on with the comments, is there a small possibility? We're not stating, it's just suggesting an idea, a theory, a concept, and that is all for this moment in time. Is there a small possibility that besides whether people think Kohberger could be innocent and he's been set up, in a different way of thinking, is there a small chance that Kohberger could be guilty and that the university are aware of that, or maybe they're not quite sure, but they're covering for Kohberger? The university had the final say and decision of, let's tear this house down, because for the community, the families as a whole, it's a good step in moving forwards. But obviously not everyone agrees with that, and some of the key family members don't. So university have taken it upon themselves and have basically just made the assumption that everyone's okay with it and that it's for the best of interest of everyone. Sounds like taking control. Sounds like covering stuff up, taking away evidence. Seems a bit reckless. Considering that Kohberger worked at that university, right? The university defending Kohberger in that sense as a valued member of the team. Maybe that won't sit well for many people out there, because I do understand that there was those news articles that Kohberger did get in trouble at times, and disagreements or some kind of falling outs, verbal altercations within the university and certain members of the team out there. Was it one of the professors of the university? The one Kohberger was working under, maybe? And there was disagreements, falling outs there, and Kohberger changing in behaviour. Didn't look quite good. Kohberger getting kind of punished for it, and then ending up losing his position and role. So Kohberger not having, what does he have left? He's lost. Has he got has he got anything left to gain, or has he lost everything? And that's why he retaliates back. Different ways of looking at the outcome and motive behind Kohberger for doing what he did, and then the differences of motives for the university not preserving evidence but trying to remove it, so then maybe Kohberger has a easier time of defending himself, and the defence team too. It's just, is there a level of biasness because one person worked under there at that place knows Kohberger to an extent? Is there a conflict of interest? Well, let's just see what other people think from my last video, whether people agree or not. Well, it appears, looking at the comments, there's actually a range of them, about 50 comments, so we might as well get through them all. Start from the very bottom, wherever that is. Skeptical says, this is a good one. Not so much a mystery. I believe he's guilty. I haven't been looking for the updates. Right, so not much of a mystery. Believe he's guilty. Now, Skeptical, let me know what you think about the mystery of the unknown males, in which DNA, or that suggestion that other males were present, at least 3 of them, but as to who the trace back to is unknown. I mean, at least from what I remember, it remains unknown. If anyone does have any updates, feel free to provide them. That'd be appreciated. Just feels a bit dodgy. Badger Life says, I disagree. I have my doubts that he is guilty. I believe the real killer committed suicide around the time Bryan was arrested. Very interesting items in that guy's house they never looked at. Are you talking about Kohberger's house, Badger Life, or the student's house that things weren't looked at? And as for having that belief that the real killer committed suicide, where did you get those thoughts from, out of interest? Because it sounds interesting that I know there was an article on Godlike Productions external website talking about Idaho 4 case and referring to some kind of dog found dead, butchered in the woodlands nearby, and it linking to the student's house or somebody's dog, and Kohberger being responsible for that, or some unknown killer, some kind of serial killer out there lurking. Does that ring any bells with anyone, or was it an unrelated situation? Interesting. Cleo saying odd situation, true. Christy says, I also think he is not guilty. I agree with Badger on this one. They don't have real evidence against him. I wonder what they are trying to hide. So, whilst that could be a fair point, Christy, I guess what doesn't help, with that lack of real evidence against him, like with that glove found outside the window or inside near to the window entrance, that was never really followed up, and the unknown DNA of the 3 males wasn't really followed up either. Those 3 males could have seen what really happened, or could have been truly responsible for the death of the students, but not really followed up. And linking back to the main point of this video, with the building being destroyed, how can you refer back now? It's harder to do so. So, whilst in the eyes of some, like Christy says, already lacking real evidence against him, when you think about it now, there's even less evidence, so it might make the case weaker. And I don't know, it might be unsettling for some people, that thought possibility. We got Father Time saying, oh yeah, brief shout out to Father Time. He was active within the Kenny Veach case and still is, long time viewer. Father Time says, yes, you are correct on Google Earth blurring out the houses and street signs after the murders, but not immediately. I don't think they should be doing that. Are they lawyers? Response-wise, Christy says, Google doesn't just blur out things, they do that on request. So who requested it is the question. Yeah. Who would have wanted it blurred out? Would it have been the families? Would it have been the university? If it's all about blurring and censoring what you see on screen so people don't see it, why is that? What's the harm in being able to look on Google Earth and see it visually, the building? Because it's outdated imagery. The imagery isn't at the time of the murder situation, so why should it matter, right? Why would anyone want to blur and cover it up? Unless it's the same people that want to literally cover it up in real life and tear it down like what they did. The university. Did the university request for Google to blur it out on Street View, I wonder. Now, yeah, it wasn't immediately done blurring out the building, but it looks like an attempt was made initially, because at least when I looked into the case, granted I was late to it, that could highlight and suggest more to the story. So when I joined the Idaho 4 case, Bryan Kohberger's situation, the murder situation, and I went on Google Earth, you could see the building. It was the building next to it that was blurred out. The wrong building was blurred out originally. So you could see the student murder house. So who was responsible first for blurring out the wrong house? Who was secondly responsible for blurring out the actual victim crime scene house? Who? Same person or different sets? I mean, people could say, well, some people want it blurred on Google Earth so then others can't see it or trace or locate it. But, you know, the address and the descriptions are given in articles and news, online media coverage, where they give it the Kings Road, Moscow, Idaho, and even the address to the street number, right? So none of that's blurred out. If that's not blurred out, people know the location and can drive and go to it. So if that's never blurred out or censored, then why did it have to be censored on Google Street View? It's not like you're physically there. You're just simply looking at it from a computer screen and it's outdated imagery. It's not causing any harm at all. So very weird to begin with. Skeptical says, I'm interested in the surviving roommate's perspective of seeing the murderer. Exactly where she was in the house where the murderer approached her, how close they were to each other for identification, and how the murderer exited the house. In my opinion, if I were a juror, the only way was to be inside the house, not viewing a 3D on a screen or model. Hers is the testimony I'm waiting for. Yeah, be interesting to see. And as well, skeptical, like what we saw last time, they were hinting that the 3D model might not even be allowed in the trial, so that will make it even harder. Gina says, yes, and if it will contradict Bethany's testimony, which is likely the case considering defense was planning on having her testify, Bethany. Skeptical says, thanks, I haven't heard anything about Bethany, Funke, evidence, only Dylan's Mortensen from the early days of the case. Did some quick reading online. Bethany's evidence apparently was written about in a tabloid. Can that be trusted? I believe the defense would like both of them on the stand so they can tear down their credibility by bringing up their past, if they have any, like defense lawyers do. They can try to with Dylan on cross. If that door is open, the prosecution must not be calling Bethany because she has nothing to add. The defense subpoenaed her to get her there. I'm still reading up, so feel free to correct me. Raf, this is interesting and could make or break the case. Even more reason not to tear down the house. Allegedly, Bethany saw a naked man run through the house and out the sliding glass door. It said from where her bedroom was, she could not have seen this due to the stairs blocking her view. A good jury would want to determine this for themselves. So why would an unclothed man be running through the house? A student sleeping over, doing some kind of inappropriate behaviour to one of the students sleeping within the house? Or just a person from the party that they were having one night before, people coming on over. And if Bethany saw an unclothed man running through the house, was that one of the 3 men that was acknowledged by the police as unknown evidence being found, DNA, and not being able to correlate it to the identity of the males? I wonder. So I guess the Idaho 4 case is an interesting situation because you've still got the for and against of whether Kohberger is guilty or not. Then you've got the uncertainty of, is there enough evidence or not to prove guilty or innocent? But then the other evidence, which hasn't really come to a head and still remains a mystery. That's a mystery within a case. So that's interesting, that. And then the mystery of, could there be another person out there running around causing trouble? We saw that, yes. Right, move on. June says, why was a bloody footprint cleaned up outside of the roommate's door? Cleaned so well it wasn't found on the first day of evidence gathering. Found it using luminol. Strange, isn't it? I think he was set up. Response-wise, Devon saying they weren't cleaned, they were latent. So I personally don't know about the footprint because I wasn't looking at it back then early on. But, you know, as we've seen with other cases like Dylan Round's, potential cleanups, cover-ups, evidence being moved about, like some people were suspicious of Kurt Wadsworth cleaning his trailer, bleaching it, you know, was that to clean up evidence? James Brenner, June 2nd spring cleaning, 2022 of June, bagging stuff up from the crime scene and being allowed to do that, you know, what was he moving, right? So in other cases, it can happen. Cleo, you're welcome. David says, I heard they released him, or when they found out he had just gone nuts from COVID restrictions. Yeah, he's free and selling lottery tickets at this gas station. What? Bit random. They released Kohberger. They forgot to read him his rights. Well, at least from how it's been worded in all the articles, Kohberger has not been released yet. Jean says, how many corrupt cops are on the force, not counting the one in the past who was charged and found guilty of planting evidence? The cops wanted it torn down at the very beginning. Seems to me there are things that went gone. I'd say do not demolish it until the trial is over. What's the rush? Yeah. So, okay, university seemed very adamant on it being torn down, which it was. And supposedly the cops too. Some people could say, are they all in on it in some way, benefiting? We got a person called Kiwi saying, leave the house up until after the trial. Unfortunately, that's no longer possible now. Poor Dylan Rounds, prayers to his family. That's relation to the Dylan Rounds case. Kiwi says, I thought they were ready for trial in October of this year. Why do they need so much more time? Gina says, I believe prosecution has been ready to go with the trial, but it got extended indefinitely when Kohberger waived his right to a speedy trial. Defence probably needed a lot more time to prepare. So on top of the defence wanting to be prepared and delays there, the other delay being the ones at summertime when students aren't at the university because the university is adjacent to the courthouse, so they don't want it to cause trouble there. Kiwi says, to me it seems like the university doesn't want to lose students and money. That could be another way of thinking about it. Gina says, I think you're right. But what's strange is that I heard from one creator's channel that the university received more applications the year following the murders. So it doesn't really make sense for them to still want the house demolished as soon as possible. I think you're right, that money probably plays a big role. Kiwi says, I would not want to be on the jury here. Do you think the 8-hour delay in calling 911 gave the killer an 8-hour advantage to get rid of evidence? Well, if that really was the case, not exactly a good job was done considering a glove was left behind and that knife sheath was left on the bed, on the floor, under the body. Christie says it gave an advantage to the surviving ones to get rid of evidence, in my opinion. Interesting. Gina says yes, and to escape, if Dylan had called 911 as soon as she heard something suspicious, there's a chance Ellie could have arrived before the killer left, 9 minutes, depending how close the police department is. I mean, once again, that's another factor in different cases out there, whether it be someone having time to cover up, make changes, or move on, move away, get motives and story straight. Delay in time of reporting things can change the landscape of everything, right? Like in the Kenny Veach case, the girlfriend failing to report Kenny Veach missing at the suitable time and lying 2 days later when the actual police report stated it was 7 to 8 days late when she reported him. Well, that would have reduced the chances of survival by almost 100% when out in the desert. Dylan Round's case, Candice Cooley wanting to report Dylan Rounds missing as soon as possible, and Don Hatley giving her permission to for the go-ahead to do so. Like, why do you need permission to report your own son missing from a third-party person? Stuff like that. Things being reported too late, so things are missing after. I get that. Kiwi, but originally Ellie said murders happened around 3:30 a.m. Where were Dylan and Bethany that night? Christy says that's the main question. Gina says, I'm not sure about Dylan, but I've heard that Bethany was at the same frat party that Xana and Ethan were at. So they're the victims. Skeptical says, in the same article regarding Bethany being subpoenaed by the defence, it stated Bethany allegedly saw both of them at the party from 9-something p.m. to 1:45 a.m. when they arrived home. Wait, what time did Bethany arrive home? Need to go back and read that again. I said, if there's any questions here you want to add on, respond to, you can do so in the comment section of this video or the live chat. Kiwi said, will Brian's car show GPS of where he was and when? Because, there was that talk about being out there within the area, night time, coinciding with the time of the murders, but Kohberger's defence, Kohberger stating that he likes going out on nighttime drives, right? GPS, I don't remember seeing any of that mentioned in previous articles, so maybe it does need to be checked. Kiwi says there was said to be 150 people at the King Road house the night before, Friday night, lots of DNA. What, you're saying 150 people were at that murder house the night before? Damn, that's a lot of people. Can you fit 150 people in a building like that? I guess so. I wouldn't know because I've not been in a situation like that. Kiwi says, why spend all that money to measure the house, get drone footage, tear the house down to build a model of it? Yeah. Going to that effort, that length, just so you've got some kind of substance still remaining of it, and yet if it's already there, why put more effort in? I mean, the bit about saying why spend all that money on getting this down, making a model of it, well, maybe it's because they're already being compensated regardless, as some other people said about money issues or money motives. So Kiwi says, why can't the university donate the house to the families of the victims? Christy saying, does the house even belong to the university? Gina says, yes, it was gifted to them by the homeowner supposedly after the murders took place. So the news article, what we looked at earlier, rental home owner decided to donate it to the university, so then the university were in charge of it. So with the university being set in their ways, I don't think they would have considered some of the families. Kiwi saying, also, did they pick December 28th to tear the house down on the same day Gypsy Rose will be released? Tin hopes her story will take over the news. I'm not too sure about that. I don't know who Gypsy Rose is. Kiwi, tearing the house down before trial is like destroying evidence. It is. Christy saying, my impression is that they want to destroy the crime scene, not to defend Kohberger, but to defend the university and the surviving roommates. Their story is fishy. Okay, that's an alternative way of looking at it. Wow. So, it can be with anything out there, right? You could assume that mystery cases, outright mystery cases, are the most interesting, and that when it comes to true crime, it tends to come down to some reasoning, some evidence, an end result. But in this instance, it seems like there's all kinds of open-ended routes and ideas. Skeptical responds back to Christy saying, interesting, but I'm confused. The university wants the house destroyed to protect, let's say, the prosecution, but the families want it to stay to protect who? Or maybe it's the other way around. I need to catch up on the case. Maybe it's more mysterious than I thought. I'll give you my thoughts shortly. My thoughts and outlook will be more rough and rugged, considering I've not spent as much time on this case, but maybe it could spark some interest in other ways of thinking. Angelina says, thanks for the update. The last I knew, they were not going to take it down till after the trial. But the trial got moved, so it'll be sad, but I believe they got their man even if the house is removed. Christy, I stopped following this case, but to me the fact that they want to destroy the house sounds like they're trying to hide something. This case has been fishy from the beginning. Right, just a random question. I'm sure it can be answered very quickly, just out of interest, and it'll be appreciated if it can be answered. So the murder house, the murder home, right? Okay, what was it, 2-3 stories? Is there a cellar? Is there anything underground? Does anyone know? It's just because when I think of American houses and buildings, they tend to have a cellar, you know? If there was one here, has that been removed as well? And if there was one initially, was there any activity or evidence found down there? Feel free to answer, that'd be appreciated. Cheryl Butler says, all this effort to try and protect the image of the university is backfiring. Makes the university and the town of Moscow look corrupt and creepy. Interesting. We got this person called Agafan saying, Dear, you are milking a clock. 54 minutes about nothing new. What's new is the perspective and the individual present covering the case. What isn't new is a typical default profile complaining and whining without really providing any use of contribution to the case. Here, disappointing. Now, you never know, this video might be even longer. Whew, terrible, isn't it? Moving on. We've got Lillian the Fair, once again, badgering on, saying, why do you feel it's appropriate to use such offensive slurs? Well, default profile again. All I'll respond back to her, because Lillian first complained on the Kenny Veach video, some of you will be aware and witnessed too. Lillian questioning me, why do you feel it's appropriate to use such words? My response, Lillian, is, why do you feel it's okay to treat disabled people as something special when they should be treated equally like non-disabled people? You seem to be self-projecting, Lillian. Very disappointing. We've got this person, a woman next to a horse or a donkey. I think that donkey might have more intellect. So saying nothing new, pointless video. You could argue and say that what are they called? Jaren, Bird or something, Lillian and Agathan, all fake profiles, could be all related to salty pancakes, all that dodginess in the background. Take notes, you never know. But we'll read it anyway. Zero contribution to the case. And then the person responds back saying, ha ha, I contribute on channels that actually have interesting material to present. Nice try at a burn, but you ultimately failed. So, was there an attempt of a burn? No, there was an attempt of an observation, and that's all. So for Jaren to assume that it's instantly a roast battle or competition clearly shows that there's a lack of maturity within one, as seen on the screen. And supposedly the usage of a failed emoji attempt as well demonstrates some form of degenerative behaviour, whether it truly is a female or male behind this account. And I just said, so instead of contributing to some worth here, you instead chose whinge and whine. And they responded back saying, or maybe you could do better content and avoid clickbaiting. You've got no proof that it's clickbait, that the language used was valid and in response to what was ongoing, the events at the time. It's shocking. That's true. It's shocking that key evidence, the crime scene, is being taken away from people's eyes. First glance like that, which could harm the case. It's shocking. But it's also strange activity. Why would you take it down? Why would you destroy it if it means losing evidence, and especially when the trial hasn't even gone underway? So the wording that's used in the title to establish emotional connection, of emotional words used to highlight and stress the issues and implications this can have on the case. There you go. And you're saying that that's clickbait. So once again, instead of providing contribution to the case with your supposed knowledge, you don't show any or much understanding. All I'll say is there's a chance that this account could be a fake impersonation one. It could be in line with some of the other accounts, because one thing that I've seen for sure, we've been there, we've done that before in the past, we've experienced it, so it could be happening all over again. Some people with obsessions with me, the lot. And if not that, maybe it's a new wave from the community of Idaho 4, because I was told with time that the Idaho 4 community can be toxic too. So here we go. Welcomed with instant hate, instant whinging and whining. Oh, how lucky am I? Skeptical. Ring the bells. Hallelujah. It's happening all over again. I'm so happy. Not. But yeah. I mean, there's been people with time that have accused this of clickbait and that of clickbait, but it's fully explainable. The title links with the video explains the title. The only thing is, Jaren, is there's simply a language and intellect barrier, and that's why you don't understand. Maybe if you work on it with time, you'll become less of an impetuous, egocentric, ignorant, arrogant idiot, right? But with that attitude and, constantly having an answer, I don't think there's much hope there. So, in the process of that, when dealing with a lost cause, severed ties, axonal pruning, axonal sprouting elsewhere, different direction, natural selection. Simple as. So to tie in with my final thoughts on this matter, the case itself and what's gone about, some people saying it's money driven, money motivated by the university benefiting in some way or another to be able to do what they do. I mean, what the university can do. Actually, let me get into that in a second. I just want to highlight one other thing before. A university situation, someone like that could vouch for someone directly or indirectly because they've worked with them. So Kohberger working at university. In general in life, someone might be more likely to be defended by a group, association or people if they've been in connection in the past and there's been a good working, healthy relationship and environment. So they're more likely to vouch for you in the future and defend you as well, even if it is a bit of conflict of interest, even if it's a bit corrupt. People can defend you if they like you, if they value you. Does that apply at the university then? I don't know, because with the claims made about some trouble with the students, the way Kohberger was acting or reacting at times, I think there was one moment where it came to papers that needed marking or reevaluating a certain Kohberger seemed out of it, not quite there, not as proactive, and that the students were almost taking over. That was a moment that was mentioned and highlighted. Another moment highlighted was that one of the students, females, was walking towards their car or somewhere on site, and Kohberger was following her or something, and it seemed a bit strange. Then the other time with Kohberger having issues, altercations verbally with the professor he was working under, or so, it might have been a female. Is there a pattern there? I mean, with this disruption, these issues, and then eventually Kohberger being released from the university, maybe the university didn't truly value him that much. So would that rule out the university covering for him? Maybe directly it would. So you can still merge different ideas together. So tying on with maybe it was what Christie was saying, or skeptical or some other people, that somehow university can be benefiting from this by just happening to destroy a crime scene and destroy evidence. They might be gaining monetary value for what they're doing somehow. And as to what they do in the future with that plot of land, that will be interesting, right? Will they rebuild a house there so they can benefit that way? Or will they keep it empty? That could be interesting for the future. And if they did make action, I wouldn't be surprised if they did it quick, because if they were quick to take this down, even before the trial going underway, then they might be quick to build something back up there in that spot. It wouldn't surprise me. So, indirectly, that's the key focus. Indirectly, the university is obviously responsible for the house being taken down. They could have benefited from that in other ways, such as monetary reasons, hence why they were passionate about it. And with doing so, leading to evidence being lost, which then might favour Kohberger, which could indirectly lead to him being released in the future if there's not enough evidence or it's lacking. So then you could argue and say, full circle, the university were indirectly responsible to the potential of Kohberger being released. that's a long-term idea, right? Not that it has happened, not that it will happen, but just as an idea, a theory, and that's all. Okay. Anything else to highlight there? I mean, Christy was saying how it might not be so much the Kohberger situation and the university's outlook on Kohberger, but the students that were actually at that house, I guess, who are attending the university. Maybe university looking out for their students, but only some. Selective, I wonder. Does one have power over the other? Has there been any blackmailing in the background? All kinds of random stuff going on. With some of the people in the comments saying that police were involved in on it as well, such as wanting the building to be torn down. What's with the urgency? And then you could link back to the Dylan Rounds case, another true crime situation, and say, what's with the lack of urgency in arresting Brenner, apprehending him before he does anything else? Why were the lacking there? Why was it delayed? Why were resources and things delayed? Is it because there's some kind of connection going on with the criminal, the suspect or suspects working with the police, or vice versa, or one having more power over the other? Some shady behaviour going on. People have been labelling the LE, Box Elder Sheriff's Office police, as being corrupt in some way, supposedly. Does that apply to the Moscow, Idaho case and the police department and the county there? Are they just as suspicious or less? I wonder. Let me know your thoughts. I think ultimately, though, one thing for sure, whether it is the case or not, as a valid observation to be made, even if the university, their actions were done for darker reasons, their response in just like assuming and highlighting that it's for the interest of everyone, it will benefit everyone in moving forwards. That's the typical jargon used in any situation in life. Speaking on behalf, making a positive speech to make it sound good, to make it sound positive in moving into a brighter, positive direction. Because obviously the talk in life and the whole mental health bandwagon as well, how things can negatively impact people mentally speaking. If you start doing speeches or talks in general about improving, feeling better, being able to move on from the past, not being held back, those key buzzwords, that will be enough to convince people and make them happy and stand and clap their hands immediately. You know what I'm saying? That type of bandwagon, that could apply. Were there any protests made by the students within the area? I wonder, have they had the chance to talk or not? Besides, the victims' families, some of which wanting the building to remain and trying to protest too and getting delays. Although unsuccessful, some tried. What did others do, or how did others feel about the building being torn down? I'll have to look into that at some point. So if you do have any additional questions, feel free to list them down below. Now, if you want to catch up on previous videos, recent talk on other cases and mysteries, I symbol, you click on that, top right corner of the screen, you'll be redirected to check up on those videos. And also down below in the pinned comment section, there'll be some additional links there regarding the channel if you want to check them out. Thanks to those that did watch, and of course those that participated in the comment section of the last video I did on this case. Some in-depth talk and different ideas to look into, right? And if you do have any additional questions, you can list them here, or if you wanted to fill in any blank gaps from this video itself or the comments from the last video, you can do so down below. But in general, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. For now, goodbye and good night.